the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Hello there, IELTS students. In this tutorial, we're going to look at IELTS Academic Task 1, specifically 5 ways to describe the chart using numbers. My name is Ben Worthington. I'm the owner, founder, and manager of IELTS podcast. I've been doing this since 2012. That's just the podcast, but I've been a tutor now for almost 20 years. I decided to specialize in IELTS because that's where we get results, where we get measurable results, and I'm results driven. Whereas if you're just teaching kids, English, or just teaching business English, you don't really get to see that much. You don't get measurement of the progress, not in the same way as you do with IELTS. This is what drew me to IELTS originally. And I decided to become a tutor when I left England. I was doing an exchange program. I left England for Spain, and I've never gone back since. And this is probably one of the reasons why I no longer have my Northern Yorkshire accent, because to teach English, usually it's better for the students. They're expecting standard received English pronunciation. It's almost there for me. There are still some vowels, but I think there are still some vowels and some words and sounds that are directly from the north. However, the most important thing is that almost everybody can understand me. I enunciate. I'm not swallowing any word endings or clipping what usually happens with British speakers of English. Let's jump into today's class. We're looking at 5 ways to describe numbers for academic IELTS Task 1. Number 1, you can use a number, you can use percentages, you can use phrases beginning with a, you can use phrases beginning with of, take meaning taken from, or you can use phrases beginning with of, which mean out of the. I'll jump into those last 2 in more detail in a few minutes. Now, if you like these tutorials, if you find them practical, then you will absolutely love the online course that we have. We've got Speaking Confidence, we've got the Writing Task 2, Jump to Band 7 or it's free, and we've got the Academic Task 1 writing course as well. When you join the online courses, especially if you buy the Everything pack, you get about 8 essay corrections where we work with you, we give you feedback, we help you improve. And you'll also have the access to the Speaking Confidence course, of course, the Jump to Band 7 or it's free course, and the Academic Task 1 course, where we have specific modules about how to select the information, how to select the correct information, and how to organize your essay, how to organize your report. Right then, let's jump into today's tutorial. Now, as you heard a few minutes ago, one way we can describe numbers is to use a number. So we just start off our sentence with either the exact number or the value. For example, we could say 6,000 kilograms of corn were exported in 2001. And we just start off with the number. By the way, I would usually write the number in this case as in 6000. Okay? And here's a pro tip for you. Keep it consistent throughout your sentence. So if you're going to write out the number at the beginning of the sentence, so you write SIX and then write the word thousand, 6,000 tons or kilos or whatever, and then later in the sentence you use numbers, and start going to the number 3, 5 and 0 for 350 tons or whatever. That's not good style. You want to keep it consistent. So if you start with numbers, use numbers all the way through the sentence, and then your next sentence, if you're going to write out the number, make sure all the numbers that are in a written form. Now, when would you use the numbers, and when would you use the written numbers? Well, you'd probably use the written numbers when you're being a little bit more stylistic. So you could say just over 5,000 were sold in the first year, whereas it barely reached 2,000 in the preceding year. You see, so not only did we have a little conjunction there, comparative conjunction, whereas, but because we're using these slightly more advanced structures, we can write it out. We can write the full number out. Now, again, another way of describing numbers is using percentages. Okay, and this is definitely bad style if you write out the word percentage. Okay, use the symbol, the ratio symbols, and just use the number here. Don't overcomplicate it, and you can just go 40% or 53% or just over 60%, and it's direct. And by the way, you can use this in a short sentence, and that's fine. And you can use it also in a long sentence. We give examples of how to use long sentences in the course. I think the important takeaway here is variety. Use a variety of different structures, like I said in a tutorial recently. But also, and this is really important, avoid listing every single data point. Do not do this, because this is not what the task response requires. The task response says choose and select the key information. And if you are listing every single data point, then you are clearly failing the task response question. So avoid that at all cost. Now, moving on to the third way of describing numbers, we can use a sentence that begins with A. A minority chose to study French, for example. Or a large group chose to study English. This is quite straightforward, but don't worry if it sounds a little bit too basic. As I've said before, you want to communicate first. You want to be an effective communicator. That's the whole idea of language, is communication. So your first priority is being clear. Once you've mastered these sentences, you can start embellishing them, you can start improving them, and going for more stylistic structures. However, these sentences, in your essay, in your report, you probably want to mix, and you cannot, well, you possibly can if you're band 8, band 9, and just use stylistic sentence after the other. But even then, it can be a little bit overwhelming for the reader. So there's no harm in slipping in just a basic, straightforward sentence, and it's probably going to help you with your cohesion and coherence as well. So here we have it, the simple sentence. A minority chose to study French. A large group decided to study English. A large section in 1990, a large jump can be witnessed in 1992 if we're going for a line graph. So don't overlook these simple sentences, because as I've said before, the variety is what's going to help your writing come across as more natural. Not only a variety of long sentences, a variety of short sentences, and a variety of medium sentences. Ideally, a mixture of all three, not just long sentence after long sentence after long sentence, because that gets incredibly hard to read. Now, moving on to the final two phrases, both of them begin with of. Now, in the first sense, we can say taken from, as it means taken from. This is another easy sentence to include, which you should not really overlook. So, an example, of the data gathered, we can conclude that global warming affects conclude that global warming affects each country differently. Yeah, or of the data gathered, we can conclude each year group had a different preference for their study, for their subjects, for their academic subjects. It's probably useful in the summary sentence, and it's quite straightforward again. And the more sentences that you can master and that you have in your repertoire, that you have in your pocket come exam day, the easier it is to write your essay, the easier it is to adapt these sentences, and the more accurate your writing will be. Because if you've got a lot of sentences, you can pick the perfect sentence for communicating exactly what you want to say. Whereas if you've only got, 10 sentences in your pocket, so to speak, if you've only got 10 sentences, then your range of communication is going to be limited, and you may be pushed into freestyling or creating new sentences on the fly, or creating new sentences in the exam situation. And then this is when it gets a little bit dicey. This is when it gets a little bit risky, and you could possibly lose points. So what I'm saying is, don't discard these sentences. Write them down, master them, get into a habit of using them. In the sentence guide, we give you a huge collection that you can easily and quickly master and adapt. This is really important. You must adapt them to the topic, to the question, and it just makes the whole exam process easier. Now, the final one also begins with of, and it means out of the. Okay? So, out of the subjects reviewed, French was a clear winner. Out of the 196 nations in the world, 193 are members of the United Nations. Quite straightforward. Don't overcomplicate it. Remember, as I've said before, clarity is the key here. I would go back, listen to this tutorial again, get a pen and paper and write out these sentences and start playing with them. And also, a big takeaway here is get some feedback. Unless you're getting that feedback, you don't know if you're writing them correctly. You don't know if you're making mistakes. You don't know if you're fossilizing some of the errors. And fossilized error means that the first time you learn it wrong, but you stick with it and you keep on using it. I did have, I would say, a few fossilized errors. I think they've come back. At one point, I managed to solve them. I thought I had solved them anyway, but a few friends still giggled. However, they did. I solved them. Then they kind of crept back again because I was no longer using my Spanish as much as I would like to because I changed countries. However, get some feedback. Learn it right the first time. And if you really want to accelerate and speed up your progress and speed up your improvement, then you can get access to a whole collection of different sentence structures. And we test you and we encourage you to use these, and we give you feedback on using them as well as you are working through our online courses. Now, my name's Ben Worthington. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to take your writing to the next level, then have a look at our online courses. We'd love to see you on board. We're getting tons of success with our students at the moment. Ellen is giving some really, I think most of the students say it's quite brutal, but it's honest, but it's still positive. But this is the tough love that a lot of students need in order to improve. And also with Daphne, a lot of our students fall in love with Daphne. I remember one actually decided to even consider a career in journalism because Daphne said she was writing so eloquently. Now, how good is that? Anyway, the first step would be to sign up to our email newsletter. There you get more tips, more guidance. But if you're in a bit of a rush or you want to move faster, you want to improve faster, then go to IELTS Podcast, get an essay correction. We'd love to see your work. We love working with students and helping them improve and getting to the next level and getting that band 7, 8 or 9. That's exactly why I set up IELTS Podcast. So all the best, good luck, keep moving, keep improving, and you will get there. Take care.
Thanks for listening to IELTSpodcast.com.